Today's poem is Buddha in Glory, and it is a translation that I did myself, fraught as translations must be with errors and shortcomings. But for the purpose of this poem, I felt it was important to try to do it myself. So here it is. It's Rilke's Buddha in Glory. Center of centers, core of cores, almond which by its own cloistering sweetens itself. All this to the stars is your fruit flesh. Greetings. Look, there are no longer any urges hanging on. Your shell is in infinity, and there the thick pulp stands and surges. From outside, your radiance emits back to you, for your topmost suns burst forth and glow and spin full blast. But within you, that which will outlast them all, even now, has begun. So taking a comfortable seat and finding your way into this moment. Washington sent our roots rain this morning, and now all the birds came back. So just anchoring in what you hear. Like I ask my introduction to creative writing students at the very beginning in the first class, to just keep writing down what's here. And then to go back to that question and write down more. What's here? That question could lead you all the way to your own self. Relaxing the neck and the muscles around the face. Relaxing the jaw, the shoulders. As if, like Rilke says, nothing is hanging on anymore. Everything with ease and repose. Your hands in that condition of receptivity on your lap. Just opening the huge gates of the heart. Welcoming whatever comes. Nothing to cling to, nothing to run from. And then softening the belly. Just feeling your 2 feet flat on the floor. and you deepen the breath to 4 counts in. Pausing at the top and breathing out to 5. You might say, breathing in, I know this world is illusory. And then looking back down, but I choose this world. I know this is an illusory world of separations. But I choose this world to relieve other sufferings. Try to achieve that looseness of the spirit, not clinging to anything, not running away from anything, not thinking about what just happened or trying to guess what might happen next. It's as if the water clears and you can see this super dense pearl that was always there all along. Breathing in, the world is empty of separate identities. Pausing at the top and looking back down. But I'm going into it every day. And my purpose is to help whoever I can, however I can. Buddha in glory, center of centers, core of cores, almond, which by its own cloistering sweetens itself. All this to the stars is your fruit flesh. Greetings. Look, there are no longer any urges hanging on. Your shell is an infinity, and there the thick pulp stands and surges. From outside, your radiance emits back to you, for your topmost suns burst forth and glow and spin full blast. But within you, that which will outlast them all has even now begun. I don't speak German. I announced that once at a reading at Yale with my friend Jan Wagner, with whom I've been working about 16 years in the Department of German. And I was on stage as the translator of Jan Wagner, and everyone kind of gasped. But as a translator working with Jan, what I have been doing all these years is taking from his very spare literal versions with descriptions of the music of the poem and the voice or the tenderness or the sarcasm or whatever else is contained there connotatively, and rewriting it so that the rhyme and the meter and the sense of humor come across in English. The point of translation is to recreate the original in a way that is consistent with its original effect on the audience of the other language. So here in English, I'm trying to recreate the original effect of the German. And that means sometimes you have to change the literalness, or you have to shift the music a little bit if an archaic form that had a certain effect on a group of people 900 years ago is no longer going to have that effect on listeners in English. So it's a similar problem to talking about this poem and even to be leading translation or even leading meditations, because this poem describes a state, a condition that I have not achieved. And leading meditations, we often get into discussions of what is it like to be a Buddha, not clinging to anything, not running from anything, in a state of peace and joy and freedom. This is enlightenment. It's really a state that I haven't achieved. It's a language that I don't speak. It's a condition that I've learned about and seen from the outside and perhaps have gotten glimmers of at best. So when I'm translating, what I do is use dictionaries online, and I compare other existing translations to get a sense of the literalness. And then with my poet's eye, if I'm able to read the characters, if it's not Japanese or another language whose characters I don't understand, if I'm able to get a sense of how the meter is working in the poem, and if there's rhyme just by eyeballing the corresponding words, then I can rewrite the poem so long as I know that I've got it literally correct. And I can even rewrite the poem as if it were my own, which is what happens when you translate. Mark Strand says that to translate is to deeply read. And there's no better way of reading a poem than to try to translate it from its original language into English. So I'm kind of doing what the Buddha asked his followers to do in 500 BC. He asked them to make of their own lives a sun, to use the example of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, but to recreate that path and those truths within the context of their own lives. Their eventual enlightenment was based on a distant source and a few other local examples and lived experience. He said, you should question my teachings and find out for yourself. And he said, whatever you think it is by what I tell you. That's not it. You have to know by living it. So in the spirit of all that, I translated this rough version of Rilke's great poem. And it's probably full of mistakes, but I wanted to grasp what I think other translators haven't really tried to do, which is the thickness of it and the density of it. Because Rilke is talking about the Buddha as if he were an almond. An almond which by its own cloistering sweetens itself, which is what we're doing here. We're enclosing ourselves in a practice and separating ourselves from the world. But in that cloistering, in that enclosing, something sweetens in us, which changes the way we see everything. And even in a mysterious way, I would say changes the world. Um, an almond is an interesting fruit. It's a fruit. It's a seed that's enclosed by a shell. And then there's a pulpy outside of the shell, which is part of the fruit. And then there's a hull around the whole thing. So it's like the aggregates that we speak of in Buddhism. There's the body, there's thoughts and emotions, there's perceptions, there's samskara and the scars that the world leaves on us and the conditioning that it produces identities from. And then there's this store consciousness underneath all of it, which is like that center. But at the center of centers is this seed, which we could call Buddha nature or emptiness, or we could call it Dharmakaya or Sunyata. There are lots of words for what he's talking about here. But this seed, this super dense seed, which is like a sun that is a red giant whose outside is stretching outward and outward and outward and touching everything, is getting super dense inside and eventually becomes, a neutron star or a black hole, collapsing on itself in its own power. And what he's saying here when he says greetings is that we are meeting a part of ourselves that always was and is already emerging from us, that this exists in us. It's not about some figure out there who lived 2,500 years ago, but it's about the Buddha nature in you. So here it is one more time. Center of centers, core of cores, almond which by its own cloistering sweetens itself. All this to the stars is your fruit flesh. Greetings. Look, there are no longer any urges hanging on. Your shell is an infinity, and there the thick pulp stands and surges. From outside, your radiance emits back to you, for your topmost suns burst forth and glow and spin full blast. But within you, that which will outlast them all has even now begun. So let's go back into it. That which will outlast them all, even though suns are impermanent. Breathing in to the count of 4. Pausing at the top and breathing out to 5. Buddha is a word that means becoming. Becoming what? Becoming aware of its awareness. As we fall into the present moment, there is this becoming. The moment emerges. In French, it's called durée. It's the rising of our sense of awareness that we're here. And as we grasp for it, it passes. So, like in the poem, hanging on to no urges, not to run away from this moment, not to try to grab it and hold it. In Czech, the word budit means will be. These are all words that come from the Proto-Indo-European root bud, the being aware of. It's one of the oldest words still spoken on earth. In the last few minutes, let's just unravel those aggregates to try to get to that center. The body being the fleshy pulp of this fruit, which is called the drupe, by the way, the fruit of the almond. This body came from other places. It came from two people who came from two people who came from two people. It's changing all the time. It's impermanent. That's not the real thing. Your thoughts and your emotions, these were learned or scored in you and scarred in you. They came from influences and other sources too. That's not the real thing. Our perceptions and our stories, they may be based on lived experiences, but skewed. Thich Nhat Hanh says, you have to keep asking, are you sure? Are you sure about this? Because they're not the real thing. What's real is that emptiness out of which all of it came. to just sit for 1 minute, not clinging to anything. Let the world go. Not afraid of anything that might happen. Nothing hanging on. The one we're greeting is ourselves. Greetings. Buddha in glory. Center of centers, core of cores, almond which, by its own cloistering, sweetens itself. All this to the stars is your fruit flesh. Greetings. Look, there are no longer any urges hanging on. Your shell is in infinity, and there the thick pulp stands and surges. From outside, your radiance emits back to you, for your topmost suns burst forth and glow and spin full blast. But within you, that which will outlast them all has even now begun.